Hello everyone, this is Grace. It is October the 5th, 2023, and we are going to be taking a look at Deuteronomy chapter 14, the portion that applies to the tithe. So let's go ahead and get started. Thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed that the field bringeth forth year by year. And thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose to place his name there, the tithe of thy corn, of thy wine, and of thine oil, and the firstlings of thy herd and of thy flocks, that thou mayest learn to fear the Lord thy God always. Okay, let's stop there because we have errors in this. It says, thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God. This means absolutely nothing. This right here, it just doesn't mean anything. You can eat right now, and you are eating before the Lord thy God. Are we supposed to go in the temple? Are we supposed to go to the temple? Are we supposed to go to Jerusalem? This means nothing. And what you're going to find as a consistent theme of this writing is that the entire thing means nothing. It's just a bunch of vague babble. That's all it is. What they do is they make it as vague as possible, say as little as possible, so that you can interpret it however you want to interpret it, so that it really means anything and everything and nothing at the same time. You eat before the Lord thy God. This means nothing. As you're going to find out, it means nothing in a moment because they're going to tell you something different. It contradicts itself all the way through. All the way through. And thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose to place his name there. What is the place that he chooses to place his name? And where is it? Show it to me in the Bible. Why couldn't you just say in Jerusalem, in the temple? Where is the place that he chooses to place his name? All of this vague babble, it doesn't mean anything. You can't interpret it. Well, you can, but you have an individual interpretation which you're applying because the Bible doesn't interpret it for you. You have to fill in that blank. And you are not going to fill this in with, are you going to say it's in, wait a second, hold on a moment, because we know Jerusalem. But they're telling us that Jerusalem was in Benjamin, but it wasn't. It was actually in the it was within the ranks of Judah. So you really don't know anything. You really don't know. But it could tell you, but it's a lie. So they're intentionally vague. And they love this lie, and they love this one too. They love eat before the Lord thy God. They love that. They love in the place where the Lord shall choose to put his name. They could have said eat at the temple. They could have said eat in the city where he chose, eat in the city where he chose to place his name. This just it means nothing. And thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose to place his name there. Let's continue on. The tithe of thy corn, of thy wine, and thine oil, and the firstlings of thy herds and of thy flocks, that thou mayest learn to fear the Lord thy God always. And if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it. Now I want you to pay attention to what's being said here. There's two criterias here. It's going to say if it's too long for you to travel carrying your food, or if it's too far from thee. If it's just too far for you to travel, or if it's too far for you to travel carrying your food. Which the Lord thy God shall choose to set his name there. When the Lord thy God has blessed thee. Automatically, they know that automatically when we hear these words, we're going to start thinking of traveling for the feast days. This is why they put all those feast days in there and they put you traveling for them, because otherwise this would mean nothing. We'd be like, what is this? What are they talking about? So they had to put all that stuff in there. More lies, of course, more lies. But the one lie has to support another lie to support another lie, and it just never ends. But it never really makes sense either. So, okay. Or if the place be too far for thee, which the Lord thy God shall choose to set his name there. It really should have just stopped there. The sentence really should have just stopped here, but they are so pompous sometimes, and they have these run-on sentences, so they had to add these few extra words in there. When the Lord thy God shall bless thee. It should have just said, and if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it, or if the place be too far from thee, which the Lord thy God shall choose to set his name there, then shalt thou turn it into money, and bind up the money in thine hand, and shall go into the place which the Lord thy God shall choose. Listen, somewhere, I don't know if it's in here. I probably shouldn't have highlighted that here because I don't think it's in here. But it says to turn it into money. Somewhere in this Bible it says if you change your goods into money, you have to pay usury, which is forbidden in the Bible. You don't charge interest. Wait, I don't remember the scriptures. That's probably why I didn't put it in here, because we'll address that later. But you don't turn it into money. That's against the rules. But here, not only are you supposed to turn it into money, you bind the money in your hand. No, words have meanings. You carry the money in your hand. You don't tie money to your hand. Why is it saying tie money up in your hands? Because it's a lie, and because they need to change the words every now and then in order to trip you up and deceive you. You bind the money in your hand? Who does that? Who ties money to their hand? Because that's what it says to do, and words have meanings. Words have a meaning. And shall go unto the place which the Lord thy God shall choose. It just told you. You don't have to go if it's too far from you. It doesn't explain what it means, but if it's too far, then suddenly it becomes less far because you change your goods into money. It never addresses the issue. But because they want to put in these long, unending sentences in more and more words in order to confuse you more and more, they misspoke here. It should have just been, if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it. And then, of course, they'll put their little mumbo jumbo in here, which the Lord thy God shall choose to set his name there. Then shalt thou take it into money. They've got all this extra stuff in here because none of it was only put in here to deceive you. They never address this. And now we've already talked about this in our wine video on strong drink, but we'll read it anyway. And thou shalt bestow that money for whatever thy soul lusteth after. Isn't that a pretty word to use, lusteth after? For oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink. You are not allowed to drink strong drink as a Christian. It is considered drunkenness. Or for whatever thy soul desireth, and thou shalt eat there before the Lord thy God, which means nothing, and thou shalt rejoice, thou and thine household. You got to leave your entire town empty to go and worship God. Is that what he would have the men of God to do? Hey, he could actually. He could protect their land. I think there's a law in there that says nobody's going to want your land when you leave. So that's fine, actually. If all the men were to leave, nobody's going to want their land. He's already put provisions up for that. And the Levite, this wasn't actually wrong, but I thought it was very... I don't remember why I highlighted it like this. Let's read it and see. And the Levite that is within thy gates, thou shalt not forsake him, for he has no part nor inheritance with thee. It amazes me how these lying scriptures continually humble the Levite. The Levite has to be a beggar all his life. He has to go from house to house begging. He can only eat when other people are ready to eat. When he gets hungry, it doesn't matter. Go somewhere. Go knock on doors till you find somebody who's eating so that they can feed you like some stray dog on the street. Over and over, they have the Levite begging for food at the houses of strangers. It's wrong. The Levites, it was a blessing to God's people to become a Levite. They were proud men. They set themselves forth up as an example. Who would want to be a Levite if the only time you got a chance to eat was when you were begging at the door of somebody who may or may not have wanted to be generous enough to have you there? The Lord sent his people out to preach. He sent them to one home. One home. And he says the people don't want you there. Knock the dust off your feet and keep going. But the Levites are continually pictured as beggars throughout the scriptures on tithing. It is so wrong. At the end of 3 years, well, I put it here because, I didn't. Here's what I did. I'm going to tell you the truth. I did not go in and look at the syntax and look at the words and do all of that. I looked for conflicts with other scriptures. And if there was a conflict, something had to give, because none of this matches up with the illustrations. None of this matches up with what is being shown in the stories, in the pictures. And none of it matches up with, and it all conflicts with other scriptures. It even conflicts with it. It even conflicts with itself. There are scriptures saying you don't have to go if it's too far. And then it says change your goods into money and go anyway. It just doesn't make any sense. You're not supposed to drink strong drink, but here you can drink it. The Levite, it was a gift to the Levites to receive from God. But here they're beggars. Constant contradictions. At the end, and here's the worst. Okay. Because they want to say that there's more than one tithe. And so they have to say that because the way that it's broken up here, it doesn't make any sense if it's supposed to just be one tithe. So they have to break it up into different tithes. But it doesn't work because they don't give you, let me read it for you first. At the end of 3 years, thou shalt bring forth all the tithe of thine increase the same year, and shall lay it up within thy gates. And the Levite, because he hath no part nor inheritance with thee, and the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow, which are within thy gates, shall come and eat and be satisfied. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, excuse me. That the Lord thy God may bless thee in all the works of thine hand which thou doest. I can't help but feel bad for the Levite. He's been reduced down to the widow. Okay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have laughed like that. I should. It's just wrong. It's so wrong what they've done to the Levite in these writings. It's just so wrong. Okay, I forgot what I was going to say. At the end of 3 years, thou shalt bring forth all the tithe of thine increase the same year, and then you lay it up within your gate. So you hold all of your tithes for a year. That makes no sense at all. You sitting on all of this worth, and it has to sit there for a year, right? At the end of the year, then you have one big swinging party, I guess, and the Levite finally gets to eat. He gets to eat with the poor widow. He gets to eat with the fatherless. He gets to eat with the stranger. They got the stranger over the widow. Oh man. I'm going to say they reversed this, and it's supposed to be widow, fatherless, stranger, because I can't see the stranger over the widow. I can't do it. But it is an opposite order, so we can do it like that. Stranger, fatherless, widow. Maybe they went from the most pathetic to in which case the Levite would be the worst. I'm so sorry. I don't get it. The Levite, they just abuse him so in these scriptures. Okay, but my point was that the food has to sit there for a year. And while it's sitting there for a year, keep in mind that this same food that you're supposed to be giving to the Levite, the fatherless, the widow, and the stranger, What are you supposed to be doing up here? There's no provisions made for up here. What is so important? And if this is about the tithe, shouldn't they tell us what the tithe is? Thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed, that the field bringeth forth year by year. They never tells you what the tithe is. There's no mention of it. It just says do it. It just says do it. The poor Levite. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I really do feel bad for the Levite, because this is a consistent theme in these scriptures, the instructional scriptures, not in the stories. The stories show the Levites as a proud people. They're proud. They're workers. They're skilled workers. They do everything. And they manage the house of God. It's a noble job, not one like it's given here that's been reduced down to the levels of a beggar, which is within thy gates. What does that mean? Within thy gates. Are you now supposed to be keeping this food which you're supposed to be keeping to take to the place which the Lord shall choose? Are you now keeping that same food within your gates and throwing this wild party where you eat a year's worth of food in a day, a week? I mean, this doesn't make any sense. There's no guidelines given, just vague, weird, very weird lies. Is everybody doing this at the same time? The whole country is having a wild party at the end of the year where they eat a year's worth of food in what, a day or two? I mean, what's the end of 3 years? Well, hold on. The end of the year is right. It's at the Passover. So are you supposed to be in? It says within my gates. The end of the year is technically, biblically, is the 14th of the first month. Well, it's the day before. It's the day. No, it's the 14th. It's the 14th of the first month. And the first day would be the next day. I may have gotten that wrong. I don't know. It's right there, though. So, how are you doing this within your gates? I'm not really sure. These lies get so complicated, and we're supposed to sort them out and make sense of them. And that's the problem. So you can feed the whole town with a year's worth of food that you've been saving up. This just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. And it's not supposed to. It's supposed to be here to confuse you. There's one tithe. One tithe. You see it in the illustrations. It's talked about over and over throughout the Bible. But these lies here are put in here intentionally to deceive you. And they are put in here intentionally to trick you. And they do a very good job of it, except for the constant and never-ending confusion which they put in their own, which is right here in front of you in their own writings. It doesn't match up, and it doesn't make any sense. And if I was to go in and look at the syntax, they don't care about that. You know why? Because they have always put forth that everything in this Bible you're just supposed to believe. And so they didn't care to make everything perfect. They just write it down. And this person got super comfortable and just wrote out almost the entire section. He had done this before. Because what they normally do is they'll put some truth up here. Then you'll come down here and they'll put a little truth in here. And then you'll come down a little further and they'll put a little bit more truth in there. And then they'll put a little bit more truth at the bottom. This guy's like, nah, you know what? I'm just going to make all this up. And then they put their code word 3 in here, just so that they could all know that it wasn't real. By the way, before we close out real quick, I just want to tell you that 3 cannot be all bad. The angels cried, holy, 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 in the book of Isaiah. I think it has to be a power, and I think it's a divine power, which can be used for good, or in the case of Satan, it can be used for bad. And I think they've just adopted that as their number, as their code for their lies. But it's not all exclusively bad. There are good threes in the Bible as well. Anyway, I'm going to close out at that, and I will talk to you more about tithing in the next video.